is Martin Noble. Let's go and see the history of Apple.
76. Computers were as big as the size of a room back in those days. This was the day Apple was founded by 42-year-old electronics worker Ronald Wayne and mid-20s college dropouts Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who both had a vision of changing the way how people viewed computers. They both wanted to make computers small enough for people to easily use in their homes and offices. All three worked at Atari at the time, and thus the first Apple logo was created, depicting Isaac Newton and his gravity experiment. The second Apple logo was the rainbow apple, and that shape is now used as Apple's present logo. Together, Jobs and Woz created the Apple I, which only sold as a circuit board and did not come with a keyboard or case. Ronald Wayne left 12 days after the founding of Apple and sold his shares to Jobs and Woz for $800. This was partly due to Jobs' arrogant and narcissistic personality, which made him have a hard time working with him. Apple gained just enough sales to start building the Apple II. Introduced in 1977, compared with the Apple I, it was greatly improved and redesigned with a built-in keyboard and case, along with floppy disk drives. But war began with IBM when in 1980 they introduced their own PC. Apple then went to Xerox PARC and used their GUI for future products. Apple then released the Apple III and the Lisa, which both failed. But now was the time that Apple would release the computer which would change the way people saw computers forever. On January the 24th, 1984, Steve Jobs unveiled the Macintosh to a huge audience which responded with thunderous applause which lasted for over a minute. It had a Motorola 68K chip and 128 kilobytes RAM, and it introduced the mouse and the Apple GUI to the main public. It was marketed as the computer for the rest of us, referring to non-DOS users. It sold well at the time. In 1985, Jobs was forced out of his own company by board member John Sculley due to a power struggle. All of the board sided with Sculley. In the same year, Woz left Apple along with some members of the original Macintosh team. Jobs then went on to buy Pixar from George Lucas, director of Star Wars, and Jobs also founded a company called Next. The Next Cube did not sell well when it was released. In 1987, Apple released the Macintosh II, the first Mac to have color graphics. Other variants of the Macintosh were also released, including the Mac LC, standing for low cost, and the SE, standing for system expansion. In the early 90s, Apple decided to give it a shot at making a portable Mac. The first time they failed horribly with the Macintosh Portable. It was anything but portable. It was so heavy and not convenient, but Apple got it right the next time with the PowerBook 100. The Apple vs IBM battle continues, not only in sales, but in advertising.
This is a Macintosh personal computer. This is an ordinary PC. This is the world's easiest personal computer. This is an ordinary PC.
And now Apple's losing the game thanks to Windows 3.0's new GUI. The response was 3 new Mac lines, Quadra, Centris, and Performer. Now this tactic will later bite Apple horribly. In 1994, Apple partnered up with IBM and started developing PowerPC processors, replacing the 68K processors. The Power Macintosh line was a direct result of this. Now Apple has been overproducing with computers named by numbers from 1400 to 9600. The overproduction has resulted in Apple losing money every year, as well as due to the fact that more people are flocking over to Windows 95 with its ability to connect to the internet. Even the most simple question could not be answered: which Mac should you get? In 1997, Apple CEO Gil Amelio had no choice and decided to purchase Next. As a result, Steve Jobs returned to the company as iCEO. Microsoft then entered into a partnership with Apple, giving them $150 million to get itself back on their feet. Most of the numbered Mac products were abolished under Jobs' control. In July 1998, Jobs and Jonathan Ive will save Apple and secure Apple's legacy. And with that, the iMac was released. It was designed to stand out from the beige and black competition, and once again, Apple released a product with massive applause. It was easy to use, easy to connect to new internet, had USB ports, and Apple began to once again dominate the computer market. Apple also started phasing out their beige products, replacing them with eye-catching computers, such as the Power Mac G3 Blue and White. 1 year later, the iBook, Apple's first consumer laptop, was released. It was the first Apple laptop which came with a Wi-Fi card. This was the beginning of Apple's consumer line of Apple laptops, which eventually separated into the MacBook and MacBook Air. In March 2001, Apple introduced macOS X. Its aqua design was impressive for the time. However, the main problem was that it was slow and it lacked some important features, and there was barely any software for it. The second release, 10.1, was significantly faster and had more support. The current OS X release is 10.11 El Capitan. In that same year, Steve Jobs introduced the iPod. It sold well due to the fact that it was simple to use compared to other MP3 players at the time, and it was the right size. This was one of the first products of Apple's digital hub strategy, which included iMovie and iTunes. The only problem was that it could not work with Windows computers at the time. The iPod then evolved to many types, including Nano, Touch, and Shuffle. One other introduction was the Apple Retail Store. It had many key features such as the Genius Bar, and you could test Macs before you potentially buy them. In the early 2000s, Apple switched from CRT screens to LCDs, and Apple's consumer products began to turn white, and their professional line turned aluminum. By 2006, Apple made the switch from PowerPC to Intel chips. The Digital Hub gets a new addition with Apple introducing the iPhone at Macworld 2007. Nobody knew how much it would impact the world 9 years on. The iPhone kicked off the smartphone market, and nowadays you'll see people with an iPhone or Android in their pocket. This is Apple's third most popular product, which increased Apple's market share. The iPod Touch was also introduced that year, and it was very popular for young people who wanted a new iPhone look-alike. iTunes also had a huge impact on society, with up-and-coming artists able to share their music in new ways never before. Nowadays, people now use cheap music streaming software such as Spotify. In 2010, Apple introduced the iPad, which was designed to be the middle product between a smartphone and a computer. In 2011, Jobs became very weak because in 2004 he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and his cancer was reaching his final stages. And after the introduction of iCloud, he eventually resigned as CEO on August 2011, with Tim Cook taking over his directives. Jobs remained at Apple as chairman of the board, and he worked every day until his death on October 5th, 2011. On Apple's website, they showed this to pay respects. Many also left flowers in Apple retail stores at the time. Although Apple no longer innovates as much, the marks that Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Johnny Ive, and countless others have left on the world has greatly improved society and made our lives much easier. So there you have it, the history of Apple 40 years on.